MFL's arraignment fails as court fails to resume proceedings in alleged 6.9 billion naira fraud case. Acting Inspector General of Police sets up special squad to address insecurity and banditry. Federal, states and local councils share 966 billion naira revenue. And on the foreign scene, Zimbabwe votes in uphill election for defiant opposition. Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to the news update on Trust TV. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. We start in Abuja as the expected arraignment of the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, on Wednesday failed over an alleged procurement fraud has once again stalled. Now, the matter was not listed on the list of Federal Capital Territory High Court in Abuja on Wednesday, with no reason being given as lawyers to both parties were absent in the court. Now, the suspended CBN governor who appeared before the court last Thursday was supposed to be arraigned, but the arraignment was stalled due to the absence of the second defendant, who was said to have been indisposed. Although Emefiele was present in court last week, the second defendant, a female CBN employee, Saadatu Yaro, was not in court. Now, following an application for adjournment, the presiding judge, Justice Hamza Muazu, adjourned the matter to August 23rd, 2023. Right, now let's get some perspective on this developing issue. Joining us via Zoom from Yola, the Adamawa State capital, is Barrister Gabriel Adiku, who is a member of the Legal Education Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association and chairman of the Legal Education Committee in Adamawa State. Barrister, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us on the program. First of all, from your professional point of view, does this constitute an abuse of procedure that the court did not go ahead with the arraignment today?
Well, I'd like to thank you for having me, Mr. Abdullahi Ahmed. It's actually not out of place, though surprising, that the matter was slated for hearing today, and then it was not listed on the court list. Now, this is what happened. When the matter is adjourned, it's adjourned for continuation of the business of that day to another day. It's expected that on the name or mention date, all lawyers involved and litigants concerned would have been in court. So it's incumbent on the court registry to ensure that all matters slated for that day are listed accordingly. But where it is not, for one or two reasons, it is not really a breach, so to say, but then it's incumbent on the judge, presiding officer of the court, to inform litigants and their lawyers respectively of the reason why the matter is not listed. It is not one of those matters or one of those reasons that should be swept under the carpet. Parties are already in court for the business of the day, so they should know why their matter is not listed. So pointedly on your question, it is not really a breach, so to say, where there's a reason justifying such a failure to slate it for the business for which it was adjourned to.
From your experience, what are the likely explanations as to why the court cannot reconvene for the hearing today? What could possibly be the reason behind it? Now,
it's possible the health of the judge. It is possible that maybe the schedule of the court list for that day is busy, and the matter, the Emefiele's matter, is such that may drag on. The court may want to have it slated for a free day. Or it is also possible that certain applications came in that the judge, the court, need to have gone through before today, which he was unable. So many reasons will account for the failure of the court to slate it for hearing, which is supposed to be the business of today. But then, whatever it is, the judge is incumbent on the court to explain to parties concerned why their matters that is listed for that day was not slated for the business of the day.
Now, Barrister, given the high-handed nature of the DSS handling of this particular case, from the High Court in Lagos, where we also saw the judge very clearly angry with the way the DSS conducted itself, especially after the court granted the defendant bail, and also having the DSS not necessarily prosecute the case in a manner that would be acceptable to the court, using the words of the judge. Is there a chance that this is indicative of the state perhaps undermining the process itself, so that Mr. Emefiele may not likely get fair hearing?
You see, Mr. Ahmed, the judge, out of his observation of the conduct of their DSS officers, have made his comment. But then whatever he said about them is incumbent on them to allow the machinery of justice grind freely. And in which case, I think that statement is more of a rebuke, or is more of reprimanding them to ensure they do what is proper. They are officers of the law. They are not to bend the law to favor them. And Emefiele is entitled to fair trial. So as it stands, the judge have made this comment, which for me is a rebuke, calling them to order. You are not the law to yourself. The law, it is the law that gave birth to DSS. So the law that baited DSS also have the scope which DSS should operate within. So the word from that judge is reprimanding them to do the needful, to behave in accordance to the law. So I wouldn't want us to want to bring that into the reason for which Emefiele's case was not slated for trial today. I think whatever is the reason for the failure to have the matter go on today or continue today is incumbent on the trial judge to explain to the litigants and the lawyers involved. Nigerians want to know. This man is entitled to fair trial. Whatever it is, however it is, the trial is what, fair trial is what is entitled to, and fair trial is what he should get.
Right, and finally, there are a lot of Nigerians who are suspicious of this entire process, talking about it being persecution instead of prosecution. But what are your thoughts about the chances that this trial could become secret instead of public? Because last week on Thursday, when he was arraigned before the court, following the subsequent failure of the second defendant to appear, which stalled the first hearing in the first place, he was covertly brought into the court, and the media was pretty much blockaded from accessing Mr. Emefiele upon arrival to the court. What are the chances that the state is trying to conduct this trial in secret?
Well, this is not one of those matters that is entitled to be conducted in the secret. No, the court is an open trial. Anything short of open trial cannot be adjudged to be fair trial. So I want to say, I don't want to suspect. There's no attempt anywhere whatsoever, and there should be no attempt anywhere whatsoever to conduct Emefiele's case in the secret. It must be in the open court. So the attempt of shutting out the media is not correct. It's not correct. We all cannot be in the court, but the media in the court is the eyes of the public. So the media must be allowed into the court to observe the proceeding and report to Nigerians. Nigerians are interested in this. Anything short of this cannot be adjudged to be fair trial. Fair trial is trial in the open court. Fair trial is trial accessible by every reasonable Nigerian interested. Fair trial is trial that can be adjudged by the ordinary Nigerians to have been fair. Fair trial is not adjudged by the standard of the intelligent or the rich in the society. No. Fair trial, the standard for adjudging fair trial is that of a reasonable man on the street. And that reasonable man must be granted access. Where he cannot be accessed, the media that is his voice should be allowed into the court.
Okay. Barrister Gabriel Adiku, thank you very much for the professional expert opinion. We really appreciate you very much for sharing your 2 cents with us on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullahi. Always my pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Moving on to some of the day's other news stories now. The Acting Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, says the force will set up a special intervention squad in various formations across the country to tackle insecurity. The police boss said this during a retreat for ex-police officers in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital.
And people-friendly police force that will support the agenda of government in economic recovery and growth, as well as social and political development of our country.
Part of what we've been having almost once in either in a month or two, together to know what is going on in the police force, what we can suggest to the government and the police itself, so that we have a very advanced police that the public needs. We hear from the public, we know what they want. Then when they hold this meeting, we discuss that with the serving IG, so he knows what the people are thinking of them.
We shared our experiences and our expectations from him and the expectations of the society, and we all agreed that the time has come when the retired IGs will not be docile, but will contribute with the present IG for the furtherance and good governance of the police.
We are just asking, sir, this community policing of a team, when you are packaging it, be rest assured that BCRC across Nigeria, we are ready to key in into your program.
The area command is established in all our borders. I will not do this course. Oyo State also has only 2 mobile units. It's our belief that this is not ethical.
Now, the Federation Account Allocation Committee has shared the total sum of 966.1 billion naira in the month of July 2023 with the Federation account revenue to the federal government, states and local government areas across the country. This was contained in a communique issued at the end of the Federation Account Allocation Committee meeting for August 2023, a statement by the Director of Press and Public Relations under the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, Bawa Mokwa, said on Tuesday. Now, the meeting was chaired by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun. The 966.1 billion naira total distributable revenue comprised distributable statutory revenue of 397.4 billion naira, distributable value-added tax revenue of 271.9 billion naira, electronic money transfer levy revenue of 12.8 billion naira, and exchange difference revenue of 283.9 billion naira. The total deductions for the cost of the collection stood at 62.4 billion naira, and the total deductions for savings, transfers, refunds, and tax credit cancellation was 717.9 billion naira, while the balance in the excess accrued account was put at $473,754. Former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Diezani Alison Madueke, will appear in court in the British capital on October 2nd after being charged with bribery offences relating to her time in office, according to the UK National Crime Agency, the NCA, on Tuesday. Alison Madueke has been on bail since first being arrested in London back in October of 2015. Soon after her arrest, her family's lawyer told AFP she would strongly contest corruption allegations that have dogged her during and after her time in former President Goodluck Jonathan's administration. She has since been linked to a string of money laundering, bribery and asset recovery cases in Nigeria, as well as in Italy and the United States. In a newspaper interview in November of 2015, she was quoted as saying, quote, "I challenge anyone to come forward with facts showing that I stole government or public money." Alison Madueke was in office from 2010 to 2015 when she became the first female to oversee the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the first female president of the Global Oil Cartel, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. The head of the NCA's International Corruption Unit, Andy Kelly, said, quote, "We suspect Diezani Alison Madueke abused her power in Nigeria and accepted financial rewards for awarding multi-million-pound contracts. The NCA says Alison Madueke allegedly benefited from at least £100,000 in cash, chauffeur-driven cars, flights on private jets, luxury holidays for a family, and the use of multiple London properties. The charges also detail financial rewards including furniture, renovation, work and staff for the properties, payment of private school fees, and gifts from top designer shops such as Cartier Jewelry and Louis Vuitton goods. Well, you're watching the news update on Trust TV. Coming up ahead, we take a look at orientational provisions for self-care for productive or reproductive and maternal health. Details and more news coming up ahead after the break. Welcome back to the news and thank you very much for staying with us. Here's a quick recap of our top stories at this hour. MFLA's arraignment stalled as court fails to resume case over alleged 6.9 billion naira fraud. Acting Inspector General of Police sets up special squad to address insecurity and banditry. Now, the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, has reopened its orientation camp in Borno State after 12 years since the Boko Haram insurgency began. Now, Governor Umar Zulum, during the declaration opening of Batch B, Stream 2 in Maiduguri, the state capital, said the resumption of activities in the NYSC camp signifies the return of peace in the northeastern part of the country. Zulum promised to engage the Corps members, especially medical doctors and other frontline health workers, to contribute in critical areas of need for Borno State. The NYSC State Coordinator, Comrade Muhammad Adamu Jiva, said 1,125 Corps members have been deployed to serve in Borno State.
It gladdens my heart to note that the entire security architecture of Borno State had witnessed tremendous progress under my watch. This is the more reason why people have returned to their ancestral homes and going about their businesses without any risk to life and property. Our synergy with the Nigerian military, paramilitary and voluntary security organizations remain very productive and action-oriented. As you make signature to commence the National Youth Service journey through Borno State, I assure you that you will all have good testimonies to make at the end of this year, inshallah.
Now, the federal government says it is taking up the responsibility of entrenching and orientation of the provisions in the National Guideline on Self-Care and Reproductive as well as Maternal Health to achieve optimum outcomes, especially among populations in rural communities. The government, through the Ministry of Health, said this is a step in the right direction, following the benefits of exploring self-care commodities for empowering beneficiaries and the resultant reduction in burdens on health facilities.
Statistics from the World Health Organization states that Nigeria has an estimated maternal mortality ratio of 917 deaths per 1,000 live births, making it the fourth highest globally. But experts in sexual, reproductive and maternal health say promotion of safe use of reproductive self-care commodities will reduce the country's maternal mortality rates.
Guideline for Nigeria is focusing on sexual and reproductive health. So first of all, contraception and family planning. And for us in Nigeria, the inroad is the self-injection of Cyana-Press. So that is what we are using as an inroad to ensure that this policy is implemented. But apart from that, we also have the HPV self-testing, that is the screening for cervical cancer, because we know that it is also very common among women and it is preventable. So instead of a woman to go to the hospital for a pap smear, there's a pack that she can actually use to screen herself. We also have the HIV self-testing.
We've gone to 23 states. We've worked with them and helped them, to see which are the critical areas that they can start with in terms of implementation and look, because the guideline also has a section, costed implementation plan. So they work on this with our help and they are guided. And of course, various states have different strengths and depending on who is in charge and so on.
Adopting modern practices and self-care intervention for sexual, reproductive and maternal health are said to have some dangers without proper orientation, like every other medical commodity, but there is the need to have a first contact with the healthcare system.
On a general sense, there are self-care interventions that have been listed in the guideline, and those are the ones that are within the framework of self-care that people can use after they have had appropriate contact with the health facilities.
Some of the products are available in the health facilities. Some you can get over the counter, and then of course you'd have had contact with the health system so that your awareness and sensitization is increased, and you know how to ask questions. You know that when there's a problem, they would have given you, things to look out for. You can go back to the health facility.
The initiative, according to experts, is not only aimed at improving self-care practices, but also to reduce child and maternal deaths, infertility, cases of sexually transmitted diseases and infections, improve family planning practices by leveraging the availability and affordability of modern technology in sexual, reproductive and maternal health practices, with or without the help of a healthcare provider. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now let's take a look at developments on the international scene, and we begin with Zimbabwe's election, as polls open, as President Emmerson Mnangagwa seeks a second and final term in a country with a history of violent and disputed votes. The elections being held on Wednesday are the second since the removal of long-term repressive ruler Robert Mugabe in a coup back in 2017. 12 presidential candidates are on the ballot, but the main contest is expected to be between the 80-year-old Mnangagwa, known as the Crocodile, and 45-year-old opposition leader Nelson Chamisa. President Mnangagwa narrowly beat Chamisa in a disputed election back in 2018, and Chamisa hopes to break the governing ZANU-PF's 43-year-old rule in the country. Zimbabwe has known only two leaders since gaining independence from white minority rule back in 1980. A runoff election will be held on October 2nd if no candidate wins a clear majority in the first round of the election. Now, this election will also determine the makeup of the 350-seat parliament and close to 2,000 local council positions. And in South Africa, at least 17 laborers working on a railway bridge being built across a ravine in India, in this eastern Mizoram state were killed when it collapsed on Wednesday. Video footage posted on Mizoram Chief Minister showed a metal frame that had toppled off towering columns into a wooded valley below. The Indian Express newspaper quoted a policeman as saying that 17 bodies had been recovered and many others were missing. It was not possible to immediately verify the reports of how many people are still missing. Rescue operations are underway and all possible assistance is being given to those affected. The government says it will pay some $2,400 to the next of kin of those killed in the incident. Mizoram is in the far east of India, bordering Myanmar, and people had come out in large numbers to help with the rescue mission. Accidents on large infrastructure construction sites are quite common in India. Well, in sports, featherweight Liam McCourt will return to action against America's Sarah McMahon at Bellator 300 in October later this year. The Northern Irish woman is aiming to bounce back from a points defeat to Kat Zingano earlier this year. McCourt came up just short against Zingano and faces another seasoned veteran in 42-year-old McMahon. Bellator 300 will have 4 title fights on its card in San Diego, including Britain Linton Vassal's bid to become heavyweight champion. American Zingano is also in action as she aims to dethrone Chris Cyborg and end the Brazilian's 2-year reign as featherweight champion. The lightweight and women's flyweight titles are also on the line, with Usman Nurmagomedov defending his 155 pounds belt against Brent Primus and Ilima Le McFarlane up against champion Liz Camouche. Well, that does it on the news at this hour. Thank you most kindly for joining us. Feel free to follow us across our social media platform for more content. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you for watching.